What I wanted to share with you today is an experience. As we see, many organizations have created API programs that are stalled after a few years. There's a lot of excitement at the beginning, and then it stops, and the budget are going down, and the adoption is not working. Tons of challenges that can happen in those programs. So here I want to share a framework to think deep into how you should consider your organization if you're running an API organization, and why you should do it, and for what objective. This is based on the Lean Startup framework and applied to the life of an API team. So as we'll see, it all starts with values, and then we'll define a mission. How do we define a vision or a purpose? We'll talk about how to build a business plan for your program. Obviously, the importance of a good product, as we saw earlier already. And finally, the tricky question of adoption, which is ultimately the most important one. So let's start with values. One thing to consider when you're part of an existing corporate is that you have to, as a team, you have to adhere to your company values. There's one thing that I would add to those values to be effective in the API space is the set of values that were highlighted by the Agile Manifesto, which pretty much is around focusing on the customer, collaboration, and always continuously adapt to change. So when you think about making decisions, this is based on values, and the values have to be those of your company, but with a pinch of agility, which sometimes and very often is a concern for success. Now, the second step, once you've agreed on what your values are, is to define a mission. So here's a proposal for a mission. We heard already about the importance of building an open platform. I also believe that this is the mission of most API teams today. It is to help their companies leverage the platform economy thanks to the 4 powers of APIs. So we can define them as, okay, first, give an organization the ability to be open digitally, to open their assets to the rest of the world in a secured way. The second power of APIs is to bring agility within the entire IT organization as everybody works with interfaces. The third one is to promote and make possible self-service, to provide the best possible consumer experience for the developer that will consume the APIs. And finally, the fourth power is the power of creating a platform. So I would encourage you to think about defining a mission for your API team around those lines. Don't forget any of the powers that you can leverage from APIs. And from there, develop a vision or a purpose. Why do we have to create this API team within our organization? And on this, the vision can be around how, as a company, you're going to be able to create a platform for your organization. So here I'm taking the example of a bank, a US bank that could build an experience based not only on APIs that they would create so that the mobile app can be consumed via APIs. If there is a mobile app, there is an API. That's pretty obvious for API people, but some people just ignore that any mobile app actually comes with APIs. So that's the first step and first model that is empowered by APIs. The second one is to actually complement the experience that you're providing to your customers with third-party APIs by integrating their services. For example, you can integrate Alchemy for document processing so that you reduce the time it takes to process document, or Mantle that is streamlining account opening so that you can open bank accounts in just 2 minutes, or Sensible for getting insights into your consumer spending so that your customers have an educated way of how they spend their money. So this is pretty obvious, but it means that as a company, you can not only think about the product that you develop and the experience you develop yourself with your APIs, but also you can think about the APIs that can complement your offering so that the experience you will provide to your community is crisp and fast and efficient. Now, let's have a look at the other business models. The first one is the capacity that you can create for APIs to allow you to distribute other people's services. So for example, if you're a bank, you can distribute the accounting services of Intuit, or insurance services of Trove, or aggregation of Plaid, and actually make commissions out of it. And you can also be distributed. You can have third party using your API and consume your API as part of their experience, so that you get you get incoming traffic and grow your community. So think about APIs as a way for you not only about providing the experience you built, but also the one that you created by embedding third-party APIs. And finally, think about distribution of services, of third-party services, or third-party services distributing your services. This is a platform, and this is the kind of vision that can be applied to any sector. Actually, we see that in the successful automotive or manufacturing or healthcare or even government companies. If you think about the 4 pillars of those business models, you can start establishing a vision for your API organization. Now, think about the business plan. If you don't have a business plan as a team, you may have a short-term future, but not a long-term one. So to build your business plan, it's pretty simple. You have to think about what is the value that you get from the program that you're running. So how much have you been able to monetize, minus the cost of the team and the cost of the resources and tooling for it. And that's going to give you a profit. So that would be the profit for your organization. Now let's dig into the revenue piece. In terms of monetization, one thing that is not necessarily obvious to many stakeholders is how you monetize APIs. The first thing to say is that only a few APIs are monetized directly, meaning only a few of them give you a plan where you're going to pay based on your consumption of those APIs, because this is typically for developers, for huge APIs with a very specific capabilities that you cannot find elsewhere. What happens is most of the time, APIs are monetized indirectly. Indirectly meaning that their value is embedded as part of something that your organization is bidding elsewhere. And this is, if you just ignore that piece, then it's going to be really hard for you to build the business plan for your team, because the value you monetize is going to look way too small. So when it comes to monetization, the topic is actually about making sure that anything related to indirect monetization is attributed to you. So attribution of revenue generated through your API program is critical. Think about the revenue that were created through your partners or through your large accounts. And then the other area where APIs generate revenue is on cost saving. Thanks to APIs, a lot of money can be saved by replacing some IT that were delinquent, or some replacing 20 integrations with just one API. The allocation of cost saving has to be built and designed so that your accounting recognize that your program actually brought that value. And all this can be reallocated within your company thanks to a good usage reporting. So if you think about how you're going to present your business case for your API program, think not only about the revenue you were able to generate directly, which is a minority, but also, and most importantly, indirectly, and then the savings you were able to materialize thanks to API program. Now, in terms of value monetized, we have to consider three areas. One, on the consumption, which is how much revenue was generated, either directly or through channels or via your marketplace. And there are indicators for each of these where APIs actually have an impact. So I talked earlier about some third-party APIs that can help you onboard customers faster. It means that you're going to be able to reduce the cost of acquisition of customers, and you're going to be able to reduce the time to service. All this drives value that you need to track and be able to drive within your organization and make visible to your stakeholders. Same with efficiency. We talked about cost savings already by cutting redundancies, even cutting redundant APIs. We have customers that when they created their catalog realized that they had redundant APIs between different geographies. This is a value that you should monetize in order to put in your business plan. And finally, in some circumstances, APIs can help with resilience and risk reduction. So for example, you can help your company being compliant. We talked earlier about FHIR in healthcare or PSD2 in banking or open banking in the UK. These are standards that your company have to obey to with regards to APIs. Same thing with availability. In terms of availability, an API first architecture can be more available than traditional architecture, which makes your business available more often, so you generate more business. Now, once you've established your business plan and you know what money you're going to be able to generate as an API group within your organization, you have to think about the way you're going to impact your organization, how you're going to organize yourself. So here I'm sharing the organization that we see be successful with large corporations. What we see is there is typically a center of excellence of people, so we can call them the platform team or the API team that would actually coordinate all the efforts. We see that the smaller they are, the better, because what matters is that most of the API production and consumption be made as close as possible to the lines of business. So within each of the lines of business, you have to think about a group of developers, DevOps, and a product owner that is aligned with the line of business and live and breathe by the guidelines and the standards, the security standards, the catalog of service that has been defined by the platform team. And this model scales very well. It scales, you can create product teams for how many lines of business you have. And then the platform team goal will be to stay in touch with all of them and coordinate their efforts so that this coherence creates additional value for each of them. And that's a good balance between staying close to the field and what's really going on in the different business units of your organization, while making sure that there is coherence in the way APIs are being delivered within the organization. Now, we talked about the structure. Let's talk about the culture. So, culture could look like a fuzzy term. My best of culture is the one provided by Horowitz in his book. What you do is who you are, meaning that your culture is defined by the behavior of people on a day-to-day basis. And this is what defines a culture. It's not a corporate document. So you have to drive that culture along the life cycle of APIs. There are tons of best practice. We at Axway are lucky to have experts, including one of them, Eric who wrote a book about it. And the right way to do things is to actually use those best practice acquired during years and years of practice in the field. And once you have everybody in the team understand those practice, then you're gonna have the culture you want in terms of agility, as we saw earlier, but also in terms of practice in the field. The other way to, or let's say the tool, the weapon to drive culture is guidelines. I think we heard earlier, we were talking about playbooks. So guidelines are very important, and they are the ones that gather best practice shared between the various developers of APIs. You definitely need one on security. Classic one is on common objects. So if you're in manufacturing, for example, you're going to need to have a definition of what is a client, what is a machine, what is a piece of product. So all those elements will be seen in many APIs. So you have to define this dictionary of common objects. Same with the schema, even though there is not much discussion about what an API schema looks like today. It's based on JSON. And on the versioning, just think about making sure that everybody use the same logic for versioning would really help your developers consuming your APIs then understand how you evolve in this area. And there is one last piece that is often ignored at the expense of the quality of the product, which is API design. So on this, there are a few books on API design. I recommend this one from Arnaud Loret. It's critical that the APIs that are launched by our organization are interesting and useful and well designed so that the experience is as simple as possible. And to do this, you need to think like Apple when they design the iPhone. You need to think about the consumer and the experience that needs to be as simple as possible while being secure. So the design guidelines is something that really makes a difference. And we've seen that with large customers in healthcare, in governments, those that ended up coming up with a design culture were able to make a huge difference. And finally, once you have designed the right APIs, good practice is to have a catalog of products. So it's we consider API as a product. So you need to have a catalog so that people can find your APIs internally and externally. So this is an example of the catalog you can build with Axway Amplify. And this catalog has to be readable, simple, searchable, so that you can tell where you stand as a team. And finally, the last effort, which is the effort that drives all the other ones, is to think about the adoption. And adoption is often where many companies think they fail, even though most of the time they failed way earlier than just adoption. If you ended up releasing an API that was not well designed because your organization is not very well aligned, then you're going to have a problem. So again, on this, what matters for your adoption to really work starts with the depth of your organization. First, you need to make sure there is internal alignment within your organization, including between business unit and developer unit, so that everybody understands that what you're doing is critical, with KPIs that are assessed together, with incentives that have been worked on by with HR, with the right internal communication, some quick wins that were built together. Once you've reached that, work on the product experience, as we saw earlier with design. Think about the developer and the experience you want to give to them. Run A/B testing. When you can, think about some of the application that you could move to your new APIs. Then you can build your partner ecosystem because you have a good product. Think strategically about your partners. Think about those that are really adding to the experience you're giving. And finally, you can go to outreach. So my point on adoption here is to say that if you only think about outreach to explain failures or slowness in your adoption, it's probably because you have an issue, because the issue of adoption stems from topics and challenges that you didn't consider earlier. And again, on adoption, you need to track it. This is an example of dashboard for tracking your adoption using Axway Amplify. And that's it. This is the takeaway. Anytime you're going to think you're lost or stalled in your program, you can think about this simple framework. Thanks a lot. And here I'm sharing some more resources for you to go further on this topic. Thank you.